In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to start and to set up and scale a very profitable Facebook advertising campaign. I'm going to walk you through step by step my exact Facebook ad accelerator framework. This is the exact same thing that I've been using for 10 years now as a Facebook advertising agency owner, and it's the same structure that I use both in my own campaigns as well as with all of my clients, from small local mom and pop shops all the way up to billion-dollar empires and everything in between. If you want to learn the secrets behind what it takes to really run a successful and very profitable Facebook ad campaign, then this is for you. So let's dive right in. All right, hey there, Adam Earhart here, and welcome to this bonus training on the Facebook Ad Accelerator. During today's training, I'm going to walk you through kind of the A to Z entire foundation of what you want to be thinking about when you're creating a Facebook advertising campaign. The concepts, the principles, the fundamentals that we're going to be talking about here today are also equally applicable to Instagram ads, to TikTok ads, to Google ads, and to YouTube ads, but our focus here is on Facebook ads, because if you can master this process, if you can understand the sequence and the strategy behind how we're going to be setting up these campaigns accordingly, well, you're going to be able to apply it to any other advertising or any other marketing initiatives that you run from this day forward. So with all that said, let's take a quick look right now at the overall structure of things that we're going to follow. We're going to start at the bottom here, down at inception. We're going to work through the ideal customer avatar. We're going to talk about laser targeting and the ad code. And I'm going to show you exactly how to script out the perfect Facebook ad. If you're brand new to writing ads, even if you're a seasoned and veteran copywriter, there's going to be some tips here that'll help you. We're then going to move up to the second stage, 3 elements here in the execution, where we're going to talk about the Spartan structure, the multivariate mosaic, fancy marketing talk for essentially split testing and how to do that appropriately. Moving on to deliberate dispatch and how you actually want to launch your ads to give them the highest chance of success. And then finally up to the top, we're going to round the corner, master metrics, very important to track what's important and also to ignore and to not let the things that are less important sort of sway your decisions, so that you're able to act from a more accountable and more calculated point of view, which is going to ultimately result in a ton more profits, then some performance enhancing data, the things you want to look at, and ultimately that systematic scaling at the very end. So how are you going to scale things up? How are you going to turn a good campaign into a great campaign? How are you going to get it to 6 figures and 7 figures and possibly even more? All right, so this is a bonus training for the Digital Marketing Academy. If you're not familiar with it, I will put a link to it in the descriptions below for you to take a look after this training. But first, let's dive in to how to set up your ads. And we'll start with the most important stuff, which is working through that inception, the things that you want to do before you even spend a penny, before you write a single thing. So we're going to start out with the ideal avatar. Now, when it comes to talking about advertising marketing at all, the focus is always on your ideal customer avatar, your market. After all, the word market is baked right into the word marketing itself. So it's incredibly important that you get a really clear picture of who it is that you're going after. And there's a few variables that you want to start to take into consideration a little bit here. The first of which is those demographic details. Let me move me out of the way here. The first of which is those demographic details, things like age and gender and income and occupation, all of the stereotypical things that you think about when you think about who it is that you serve. Now, we're obviously going to get a little bit deeper, but when it comes to advertising, it's very important that you have a clear understanding of the demographics of your ideal target market, because you're going to be able to be incredibly selective about what age and what gender and all of those sort of different variables when you're selecting, so you can make sure that you're reaching the right people and not wasting your money on the wrong people. Geographic details, fairly self-explanatory here. What city or state or province or country do they live in? And then of course, psychographic details. And this is where the ad campaigns and the ad platforms today are significantly more advanced and more powerful than they've ever been before. So you can target people based on interests, whether they like a certain food or a certain brand or a certain whatever. I mean, honestly, pretty much anything you can think of, you can target people for that. There's behavior-based targeting on if there's anniversaries or if there's birthdays or if there's parents or whatever else. And then of course, attitudes and things like that. So what are their values, their lifestyles? Are they outdoorsy people? Do they like fishing? Do they go camping? Do they play music? Whatever it is, the better that you understand who your market is, the better you're going to be able to come up with an ad and with all of the targeting variables around that pinpoints them, which saves you wasting a ton of money going after all of the wrong people. Now, when you get this right, well, the transformation moves from anonymous to intimate. And that's the sort of the incredible important takeaway here, is that customers don't buy when they understand, they buy when they feel understood. And the only way to make someone feel understood is when you can actually put yourself in their shoes. You can be empathetic and you can sort of resonate with what they're going through. So very important to nail that right. But once you've got it, well, now we can move on to that laser targeting aspect and making sure that you're putting that in front of the right people. Now, there's a couple different ways to make sure that your targeting is on point. The first of which is audience insights. This has been a tool that Facebook has had for years. It's been kind of touch and go with how valuable it was. It's decently valuable again. So if you just do a quick Google search for audience insights, you're going to be able to figure out a ton of information around what kind of people you're after and what other things they follow and demographic details and all kinds of things on that. Could make an entire training on that alone. Lookalike audiences, incredibly powerful. These have been one of my, as well as most of my friends and colleagues, top performing audiences for a very long time. And what a lookalike audience is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. An audience of people that you know is really good for you, and then you tell Facebook to go out and find people that look just like them, and they're going to match all kinds of different variables with it, and often is one of our highest performing audiences. Also, you can do that psychographic targeting. Again, we're talking about interests and behaviors, organizations, affiliations, groups, pages they like, all of those other things. This is going to enable you to get right in front of that perfect person and make sure that you're not wasting your money on all the people that aren't a good fit. When you get this right, you move from irrelevant to relevant, and that's the goal. Not a lot of people talk about this. When their ads aren't necessarily performing as well as they like, it's often because the person that they're serving it to isn't relevant. The message isn't relevant. It's not something that they want. It's not something they're interested in. And you can avoid all of that by making sure you're putting your stuff in front of the right people. All right, let me shuffle back to the corner there and we'll keep moving. Time to talk about the ad code. Now, this is a proven process for how to script and how to write out your ad. This is something that I go back to almost every time. Anytime that I'm stuck for ideas or I'm not sure what to do next, I come back here, I reference it, and without fail, it's just a really, really effective way to write out your ads. There's a number of different copywriting frameworks. There's different lengths you can try, but great place to start right here. Number one, you want to start your ad by calling out your ideal target market. So it's one thing to have a really clear understanding of who your market is. It's another thing to be able to target them through different groups they're a part of in their psychographics and their demographics and geographics and all of that. It's another thing to use your copy, meaning the words that you write your ad, to call them out. Essentially saying like, hey, are you this kind of person? Or does this sound familiar? Or have you ever had this happen? Or let me tell you a story about something that happened to me that is really just a way of talking about them and their problem. Now, what you want to do in a perfect world is you would ask them a question that would have them subconsciously say yes. So for example, let me tell you the story about the time that this happened. Does that sound familiar? Or would you like this kind of thing? Or this is something that you might like maybe, or anything like that along the lines of what it is that you're selling. Because when they say yes, it's like a mini micro commitment that's going to get them to continue proceeding through the rest of your ad. Next, a unique offer or a proprietary system. This is important regardless of if you're selling products or services or anything or any combination in between. You want to find some kind of a unique name or a unique mechanism. In other words, what we've called this training here is the ad accelerator. It's not Facebook ads training. It's not Facebook ads. It's whatever it is. We gave it a unique name. Now, arguably the word accelerator has been overused in the marketing space, but I still like it. I think it fits well. The point is you need something that differentiates you from everybody else around you. And even if it's just a name, it's going to make it so the only way to get that is through you rather than becoming a commodity where you have to compete with everyone for the same thing. Simple strategy. This is important. Your ad has to sell one thing, not two things, not five things, not 10 things. This is a common pitfall I see a lot in e-commerce. If someone's sending an ad to a sales page and they're listing everything out at once, it's too much. Same thing goes with any kind of services, and you're giving someone a laundry list of all of the different services you could perform. You're going to overwhelm people. There's a psychological phenomenon called the paradox of choice where you give people too many options and they choose none. So one ad, one offer. Emotional associations, your image or your video or whatever kind of graphic you use, very good opportunity here to invoke emotions. We'll talk more about that in a second. Also, open loops. This is a marketing term where essentially you're creating more intrigue, you're creating more interest, but you're not solving the problem because that's what your offer, your product or your service is for. So we're saying, hey, look, you've got this problem. We'll talk about how to script that out in a second. The solution is to take the next step to make the purchase, etc. And then of course, a very direct call to action at the end. Do this now. No need to beat around the bush. We need to make sure that we're diving right in and giving them a very clear what's next step. All right, so let's take a look at what I'm gonna call the perfect ad. And I'm gonna have to move myself around a bit. There we go, I'm out of the way. So this is what I call the perfect ad. I like to use this as a benchmark or as a framework to base the rest of your ad writing on, but you can see that it does follow a very strict structure of things that we want to follow from top to bottom. So number one, we have that call out question. So start with a question or start with something that gets your ideal target market to self-identify and say, yes, this is for me. Yes, I'm interested. Yes, I want to hear more, whatever it is. Then we move on to pass. There's a very common copywriting formula called PAS, which is problem, agitate, solve. There's all kinds of different variations on it, like problem, agitate, solve, outcome, or what I like here is problem, agitate, solve, scarcity. So what you're going to do here is you're going to describe the problem. So it's like, hey, you have this thing. It's not great, is it? And then we're going to agitate it. And if you have that problem, it's probably causing all of these other problems, which is making this so much worse. Then we're going to provide the solution. So, but what if this, or what if it didn't have to be that way? Or don't worry, we can solve that now by doing this. And then we add urgency or scarcity, but it's only available this week, or we only have this many available, or it's a limited edition, or whatever it is. We have to add some element of urgency or scarcity because given the choice between acting now or acting later, most people choose later. And between you and I, we know that later kind of means never. So we do have to give them a little bit of a push in the right direction to get them to take action. After that, component 3, a nice, clear, single call to action. To get this guide, click this button, download now. To make this purchase, click over here, buy this now. To book a call, click that button, book your call, whatever it is, one clear call to action. Component number 4, a shortened URL and a scrambled link. A link scrambler is something like bit.ly, bit.ly. It's something that takes a big, long, ugly link and shortens it into a nice, tiny little thing. Relatively useful. It helps you with tracking a little bit. You don't have to use this. This is an optional one depending on the length of your ad, but it can help to give somebody sort of an intermediate call to action, especially if your ad's going to carry on. All right, component number 5, a high contrast emotional image that is relevant to the offer. There's no benefit in clickbaiting someone to click on an ad and then having them just bounce off your landing page or not take any action whatsoever. So you need it to be relevant to whatever it is that you're selling. We call this ad scent, as in the smell of it. So it's like if someone clicks the ad and then they get to the landing page and it looks completely different, they're going to bounce. And then you've just wasted a click. You've shown Facebook that people aren't really converting. It's not going to work as well for you. So you need to make sure it's relevant. You also need to make sure that it's visually appealing and it's striking. This changes all of the time because there's this expression that marketers ruin everything. And the reason that is because the second that something is effective, everybody does it, and therefore it becomes less effective. So yes, do your competitor research, make sure that you're looking for the best images and the best styles and the things that stand out, but then don't be afraid to pivot and to change. The reason that I love this image as an example is because back in the day, quote unquote, 10 years ago, black and white images were just crushing it. And then we saw them fall off because everybody started using black and white images. So then we started using really high poppy contrasty colors. And then they started to become a little bit more overused. So now I kind of walk this middle ground between black and white and a bit of color and a pop here, something that draws the eye, something that's different. This image will probably not work anymore. I have played this one out for a very long time. Very high converting image though. After that, we move on to number 6. This is what the offer is and the name and the primary benefit of it. So this is your headline of your ad. You can put the name of the download or the product or the service. You can put the primary benefit they're going to get. There is no one-size-fits-all solution here. You're going to want to test a couple different variations of that to see which one works best for you and your business. If you do happen to be running an ad on desktop and not necessarily just on mobile, you do have the option to add this description as well, which just gives you a chance to add some more supporting benefits. I like to end it with a cutoff sentence. You can see that it's trailing off here. So use this section to expand on the benefits. Be sure to leave them wanting more with a cutoff ... So we add those ellipses. We're not actually getting cut off. Kind of a sneaky marketing trick, but it makes people want to click, makes them want to learn more. And then component 8, use your primary domain. We used to be able to put a call to action, as you can see here. Now we just put our primary domain. It works fantastic. I also like to avoid using any weird domains. So if it's like .clickfunnels or .leadpages or .unbounce or anything that screams marketer. See, one of the goals of marketing is to make marketing that doesn't look like marketing. Now, when you get this right, your ad moves from boring to exciting, and exciting ads get people to click and ultimately get them a little more motivated and amped up to take the next step. All right, let's move on to section number 2, which is execution. So here we're going to go through Spartan structure, the multivariate mosaic, which I find infinitely fascinating. I love split testing because that's where the real money is made, doubling down on the things that are getting you the best results, and then deliberate dispatch. So we'll start out with that execution and the Spartan structure. So here's the deal. When it comes to setting up your campaign, the foundation that you build it on is going to sort of lay that groundwork for future success. So a little bit of extra planning and time spent here is going to pay off for a very, very long time to come. So obviously you've got to do your basics. You've got to install your pixel. You have to verify your domains. You've got to set up all of your permissions and things like that. Yes, this has changed in recent months and years with Apple's iOS 14 and with different cookies and tracking policies and all of that. That's going to continue to change. It's not a big deal. I mean, yes, we've got our hands tied a little bit in some of the things that we can do, but we just work with what the tools that we've been given. And right now, these are the tools that we have, so we use them to the best of our ability. So make sure to get that installed correctly. Naming conventions is next. I'm going to talk about that in a second and how you want to set them up. Your dashboard setup as well, your metrics, and custom conversions. So let's dive through those now just a little bit more. The first of which comes down to your naming conventions. So when you're running a Facebook ad campaign, an Instagram ad campaign, similar with Google and YouTube, TikTok's slightly different, but the point is that you're going to have this campaign level, then you have your ad sets, then you have your ads at the very end. What I like to do, depending on how I've got it structured with campaigns and ad sets and ads, is making sure that, especially at the campaign level, I'm naming things with the objective that I've chosen. So if I'm going for a conversion objective, which we are 9 times out of 10, perhaps a traffic objective or a video views objective, then I say the placements, if I have it as all, or if I've got manual placements of mobile newsfeed only or Instagram Reels or something like that. Then I might do the next parts at the ad set level, and I'll label the targeting that I'm using. So it could be men or women between this age and that age, could be the interest, could be that, or whatever it is. And then my ads, I like to label with the ad copy and the image that I've chosen. It sounds a bit confusing. You'll find your own way to label them in a way that you're going to be able to go through and identify what's working. But it's important to do this step because the last thing you want to do is start adding to your ads and start creating new ones and new campaigns and new targeting and all of these different options, and you're seeing that one works really well and you have no idea if it's this demographic or that placement or that targeting. But if you can look at things from a very high level, it becomes a lot easier to scale the winners, to cut the losers, to duplicate things that you know are going to work. If you're running an ad agency or running this for friends or family or clients, this is mandatory. You basically have to do this or you'll be lost in a matter of minutes. Next, dashboard setup. Facebook does give you the option to customize your dashboard to look at how things are going and where your different metrics are being reported. This again comes down to personal choice, but what I like to do is typically map out my funnel. So if we're doing, say, a high ticket service ad. We're going to run an ad. We're going to run it to a landing page. There's going to be an application page. There's going to be a calendar booking page, and there's going to be a confirmation page. So what I will do is I'll set up my campaign and my ads dashboard so I can track each step. I can see how many leads I'm getting. I can see how many people are hitting my booking page, how many people hit sales call page, how many people then confirmed. I can see what my click-through rates are, my conversion rates of each one. So it does get a little bit, I guess, busy, but it is also useful to get that high level view of what's working and what's not. But again, fit it to your campaigns. And then initial metrics to track. We'll talk about this more in troubleshooting at the end there with what to do when your ads kind of go sideways and they're not working the way that you want. But these first few metrics are the ones that I pay attention to. So CPM, what's your cost per mil? This is your cost to reach 1,000 people. Sometimes you're going to get this in and it's going to be $5 to reach 1,000 people. You might be on the right track. And sometimes if you're incredibly niche down in certain B2B industries, this might be $50 or $100 or $120. The point is you want to track what your average is. So if you've got a couple different ad sets at $50 and one is at like 150, well, you know something's probably gone a bit wrong there. Your targeting might be too specific, and you'll definitely want to track the rest of your metrics to make sure that you're still profitable. CTR is click-through rate, CPC, cost per click, CPL, cost per lead if you're optimizing for that, CPA, cost per acquisition, or whatever the purchase or sale or add to cart or initiate checkout or main conversion goal that you're going after. Now, I appreciate that is a whole lot of metrics all at once. Once you've set up your campaign and you've started to look through these things, it will start to make a whole lot more sense. The beauty of doing this is you do move from chaotic to organized. And the only way to scale, the only way to grow and to become really profitable with your advertising is to make sure that you are organized right from the very beginning. All right, let's talk about, we'll move me out of the way there. Let's talk about the multivariate mosaic now, which again, fancy talk for A/B testing, split testing, how to find those super ads, those ones that are just outperforming absolutely everything else. Now, there's a number of different things that you can split test when it comes to trying to find that perfect combination. The first of which is objectives. So the most common objective that you should be using when it comes to running Facebook ads is the conversion objective. You run an ad with the intention of getting someone to do something, to download a lead magnet, to make a purchase, to book a call, whatever it is. You've got a custom conversion set up for that. You're optimizing for it. That's perfect. But you may want to split test traffic or video views, or those are typically the two that we'll start with, but you could pretty much test anything else. You could test reach, you could test engagement, you could do whatever you want. But keep in mind that it doesn't matter how many video views you get or how many likes you get or how many forms of engagement or shares. What matters is how many leads you're getting and how many sales you're getting. Next, audiences. You can test different kinds of lookalike audiences. So if you have an email list, you could do a 1% lookalike off your email list. You could do a 1% lookalike off your customer list. You can do a 1% lookalike from any other sort of database or source you have. And then of course you have all of your interests, being your psychographic targeting and your attitudes and your behaviors and all of those things. So there's almost a limitless supply of different things that you can test when it comes to your targeting and audiences. You can test placements. The two main ones that I'll typically go for, depending if I want to go as big as possible, as fast as possible, or if I want to conserve my budget, is I will go all placements and just let Facebook have at it if I want to go as big as fast as possible, or I'll typically go mobile newsfeed only. Mobile newsfeed only. So I'm only trying to show up in the newsfeed on mobile devices, and that's if I want to conserve my budget and see what ads are working better than others and get the most accurate data. Because sometimes with some of the weird placements that they have, and there's new ones launching all the time, they don't often work very well. But if you sometimes give Facebook a little bit of rope with the all placements, they manage to find the right ones for you. Ad image, another incredible important one, metaphor versus literal. So if you're selling a product in this case, well, you could show a picture of the product, which 9 times out of 10 works better, or you could show the benefit or the result or the outcome or some kind of metaphor of what that product is going to give you. Same thing goes with different kinds of services or software, anything like that. So don't be afraid to play around there. And then ad copy, short ads, medium ads, long ads, really long ads, it's totally up to you. There is no one size fits all again here. Your ad kind of needs to be as long as it needs to be. I used to err on the side of really long ads. We're seeing those become less effective over the past year or so. So now we're trending more towards medium length and shorter ads and doing some more of our heavy lifting on the landing page that someone gets to. Now, when you get this right, Your customers, your viewers, they turn from confused to aware. They start to understand what it is that you do. Not to mention, this applies to you as well. You move from this confusion of not knowing what's going on to knowing which ads are performing best in which placements, and therefore you can scale comfortably and profitably. All right, deliberate dispatch. Let's talk about getting these things out into the world. So there's a couple different things that you want to consider when it comes to launching your ads the first time. The first one comes with timing. So to launch, then you optimize, then you scale. That's the process that you want to do. So you can't scale an ad, obviously, if you haven't launched it before. So you need to get it out into the world. Different markets are going to have different days that they work best on, Monday to Friday, sometimes Saturday and Sunday. Normally what we do is we launch ads Tuesday morning at 3 a.m. local time. It seems to just give us overall the best chance of getting in front of the right people and to get sort of enough data back for us to make educated decisions. We normally don't turn off our ads, pretty much never, on the weekends or on certain days. You can do this more with Google ads and with YouTube ads, where you can day part them, it's called, and you can turn them off in certain times or certain dates. More important if you have a local business and you're simply not open at those hours. With Facebook ads, however, it's better to let them optimize and to learn. So you really do set them and you give them a good 48 to 72 hours to do what they need to do. Once they're launched, then you optimize them by sort of trimming things out and getting rid of the losers and figuring out what the winners are so you can duplicate them. And then you scale from there, which we're going to talk about in just a couple minutes. Also, you want to keep in mind your overall budget. What are you going to be comfortable spending to acquire this initial data? Now, what I suggest when it comes to budget is that you want to set at least 3 times your max CPA per ad set. Let me explain what that means. Let's say you're selling something for $20. Nice easy number. So what I would do is I would have an ad set and I'd be spending at least $60 before I made a decision that this was a good ad or not. So I'm going to spend $60 to make one sale. So max 3 times my cost per acquisition. That's essentially the number that I need to make sure that I'm getting enough impressions and enough reach. Now, this is where a lot of people go wrong, is they'll sell something for $100, they'll spend $10 on ads, they won't make a sale, and they'll get frustrated. But that's a bit weird, right? Like, you're expecting a 10 times ROI without spending sufficient budget on it, without giving it enough time to get optimized, and without testing enough different angles. So ads are amazing, but we do have to be realistic, especially when we're first getting started. Amazing results are absolutely possible, but they do take time and effort and energy. Nobody likes to hear that, but advertising is very much a skill. Otherwise, everybody would have it mastered, and we wouldn't have to continually work on it and try to improve any way that we can. Also, KPIs, you do want to watch these. These are your key performance indicators. So look at your metrics like your cost per clicks and your cost per leads and your overall ROAS, or return on ad spend, to make sure that you're profitable as you go. When this happens, you get to move from impulsive to strategic. No longer are you sitting there watching your dollars drain out of your account, freaking out every second, wondering when you should pause them or turn them off or just scrap it all together, because you now know that, look, we're going to give it 3 times max cost per acquisition. We're going to give it 48 to 72 hours. We're going to take a look then. We're going to be very analytical about it. We're going to try and remove as much emotion from the decision as possible. All right, now we can move on to our third stage, our third and final stage, where we're going to go through our metrics, our performance enhancing data, and talk about how to scale these puppies up. So with that said, let's start with master metrics. And we'll move me out of the way again. All right, so key performance indicators that you want to take a look at. The first of the big ones here is going to be some kind of variation of click-through rate. Now, there's 2 different click-through rates that you want to look at. There's your overall click-through rate, which has to do with all of your clicks, and there's your link click-through rate, which is how many people actually click the link. See, there's one thing to click an ad and to click the like or the comment or just to click to read more. It's another entirely to show intention by clicking the link and then proceeding on to the landing page. So you want to take a look at that and track it. You want to obviously track your conversions. Like I said many times throughout this training here, the main objective you're going to be using is probably the conversions objective. So you want to track, all right, well, how many conversions you're getting? What is your cost per conversion? This could look a couple different ways. It could look like a lead, or it could look like a purchase, depending on your overall funnel. But you need to make sure that all of these line up and that you're spending the right amount of money. You're getting a sufficient return on your ad spend. And of course, That's the ROAS, the return on ad spend. The other term is ROI, or return on investment. With advertising, we typically call it the ROAS because we want it to be a direct reflection of the money that we're putting in to our ads. All right, let's talk about troubleshooting here for a second. What do you do when your ads are going sideways? You've launched your campaign, things aren't working, you can't figure it out, it's a bad day in Facebook land. Well, a couple things. The first of which is you need to make sure that you have put in a sufficient amount of budget or time. Again, it's kind of unrealistic to spend $10 and expect to make a $100 sale in the first 10 minutes. You've got to optimize, you've got to write better ads, you've got to try to find the right images, you've got to line all of that up. Next, though, you want to take a look at your CPM. We talked about this before. This is where that cost per mil, how much is it costing you to reach 1,000 people? If your average is $20 or $30 or $40 or $50 and you've got a couple ad sets that are just right out of left field there at $150 or something like that, yeah, something's probably gone wrong with the targeting, or for some weird reason, the ad is just too expensive to show to this market, so we probably want to shut that one down or take a closer look at it. The second is CPC versus CPLC. So your cost per click versus your cost per link click. Just like your CTR versus your CTLR, your click-through rate versus your link click-through rate. There we go, LCTR. So many acronyms in marketing. What we're looking for here is like a 2-to-1 ratio. So let me explain. If we're getting a 5% click-through rate and like a, I don't know, say a $4 cost per click or a $2 cost per click, we'd be looking for our link click-through rate and our cost per link click to be half of that, or essentially having our cost per click or link, whatever it is, double. So let me write this out to make this a little bit easier now that I'm thinking about it. Essentially, if we've got a cost per click of $2, we're looking for a link cost per link click, or a cost per click for the link of around $4. If we've got a link click-through rate of 4%, we're looking for a click-through rate. I did that backwards. Let's do this. If you've got a click-through rate of 4%, we're looking for a link click-through rate of 2%. Now, why is this important? This is important because essentially what it's showing you is that you're getting at least half of the people to click your ad to then go on and take that next step by clicking on your offer. So in other words, we could clickbait people all day long, and we could have these 50-cent click-through, 50-cent cost per clicks. There we go, 50-cent cost per clicks, and we could have crazy high click-through rates of whatever it is. But the point is, it's irrelevant if nobody's actually clicking on the link to go to see what your offer is. So what ideally we're looking for is that 2-to-1 ratio. People click it, they read it, they're interested, and then they click on to the next section. A little bit complicated. Hopefully that made sense. If not, let me know in the comments below. We'll sort through this together. The next thing is to take a look at your overall reach as well as your frequency. The reach is how many people it's getting in front of. The frequency is how often it's getting in front of them, or how many times they've seen it. And your impressions are actually just your reach times your frequency. So how many times people are seeing how many ads. What this is important for is specifically your frequency. If for some reason people are seeing your ad 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 10 times, 20 times, and you're still running the same copy and the same creative, your costs are going to go up and your results are going to go down. You're going to need to refresh your ad copy. The smaller you're targeting, this is especially true with local businesses, the greater the need to increase the sort of the turnover of the ad copy that you're creating. You're going to need new and fresher creative a whole lot more because other people are going to go blind to it. All right, let's keep going here. What happens when you get that right? Confusion to clarity. Again, you go from having no idea what's working to knowing exactly where things are going and if you're moving in the right direction. All right, let's talk about performance enhancing data. Now, how do you make this better? How do you take a good campaign and make it great? Or how do you take a campaign that may need a little bit of polishing and sort of take it to that next level? Well, a couple things you can do. Number one is you can refine your targeting, again, by going after different people, going after other kinds of audiences. You can make it broader if you've had success with a narrow targeting. Ad copy, incredibly important. You want to be refreshing your ad copy, so look back over the ad code, go through it a couple times. Don't be afraid to come up with a few different variations and test them. The same thing goes with the ad image. It's my belief, and I've got sort of the anecdotal evidence to back it up, but the image that you choose is responsible for about 80% of the success of your ad. Bad image, no one's stopping. You simply don't stop someone from scrolling and to pay attention. So if you're going to do anything, if you're going to spend any amount of time on anything, double down here on finding the right image or putting together the right video. And on that note, a lot of people ask me, well, what's better? Is it image or is it video? Here's the answer. A good video beats a good image, but it adds a new variable, a new level of complexity, because now you've got to make a good video. And it's a whole lot easier to find a good image than it is to script out and to record and to edit a good and compelling and interesting video. So if you're just getting started, start with images. Definitely don't be afraid to play around with video sooner than later. But it does add that level of complexity. Placements is another thing. We can move from all placements. You can move to manual, mobile newsfeed only, still one of my favorites. Instagram Reels if we're running Instagram ads, also phenomenal. And you can mess around with your budget. You can move from CBO, campaign budget optimization, to ad set budgets. It's funny, we use a really solid mix of both of these still. I think my personal preference is probably still ad set budgets. So we'll have a campaign and we will leave CBO off, and then we'll set our budgets at the ad set level, just because I feel it gives me a little bit more control. But when we want to scale it up, we definitely play around with CBO from there. And when you get this right, good to great, my friend. All right, moment of truth. How do we scale these things up? How do we take a campaign that's starting to get some results? It's returning a positive return on investment, or ROAS. We're getting some good leads, some good conversions, and we want to take it to the next level. Well, this is the system that I use to scale up pretty much every campaign that I work on. What we do is we start at the top and we work our way down the list. The first of which is incremental budget scaling. This used to be significantly more important 5-6 years ago, when any time that we made any change, Facebook seemed to just automatically tank our results overnight. So we had to take our budgets and just tiny move them up. So if we're running $100 a day per ad set, we move it to like 115, maybe 120. And then we'd give it a couple days, make sure nothing went off the rails. And then we'd add it again, maybe 140, 145 or whatever it is. Slightly less important now, but you still can't take a campaign that's doing $100 a day and put it to $1,000 a day and expect things to work. They're probably going to go off a cliff very quickly. So incremental budget scaling is still somewhat advisable anytime that you're spending more than like $150 a day per ad set. If you're under that, if you're spending $10, $20, $30, you're not going to probably mess up the algorithm too bad by jumping up to around $100 or so. Ad set duplication scaling, this is a great one. This is where you simply take your best ad sets and you duplicate them. You copy them exactly. There's a lot of fear of people having their ad sets cannibalize each other. It's like, well, aren't I competing against myself? And yes, if you're spending $100,000, $200,000, $500,000, $1 million a month on ads, you're probably competing against yourself with this. But if you're spending $100 or $200 and you're targeting 2 million people, it's the practical reality of that is pretty much ignorable. It's just not big enough to make a real factor. So yes, you can duplicate ad sets. If you want, you could change the targeting or the placement or anything like that. I typically just duplicate them. In fact, what we used to do, and we still had good success with it, is we would just duplicate a bunch of different ad sets. Say they were all at $100 a day and we wanted to 5x it, we would just make 5 duplicates. Here's what's interesting. If you duplicate an ad set, you would imagine that your results were going to be exactly the same because you just copy and pasted an entire thing over. But you're going to find that some ad sets are going to outperform others and some are going to dramatically underperform, which again, that's kind of what makes this part art and part science, is sometimes things just get a little bit weird with the algorithm. All right, audience scaling. This is a great way to reach more people and have a broader impact. So if you're doing a targeted campaign of around, say, 500,000 or 1 million people, and you've got your interest targeting, your demographic targeting, and your geographic targeting dialed in, you might just be able to open it up a little bit and start creating audiences that were 2 million in size, or 5 million in size, or 10 million in size. In fact, once we get a really, really good ad that we know has mass appeal and we're not in a crazy specific B2B style niche, we'll often open that thing just wide up and just send it out into the world. And Facebook will often return us some pretty good results from it. Bid scaling is another one. This is slightly more advanced, not as visible with Facebook ads, a little easier with Google ads and YouTube ads, but you can go from automatic bidding and setting caps in that to manual bidding. Probably avoid that one, but it does give you more flexibility for how to scale things up. You can scale objectives. We've talked about that before. Instead of going for just conversions, you can now create different campaigns based on traffic or optimizing for engagement or for video views, which is going to allow you to tap into different pockets of your market. And of course, you can do offer scaling as well, which is one of my favorites. This is where you simply come up with new lead magnets and new offers and new hooks and new angles, because even though you may have saturated the market with this one offer, there's still other opportunities for you to help the same kind of person with the same kind of outcome, but just in a different way. So with all that said, the next thing you're going to want to do is check out the video I've got linked up right here on even more Facebook ad strategies. So make sure to check it out now, and I'll see you in the next video. The reason that most ads don't work is because they're saying the wrong things to the wrong people. Or in other words, the offer that they're making is either unrelated or unappealing.